Bobbi Banks, you're the supervising sound editor for Women of the Movement, which tells the true story of Mamie Till, the mother of Emmett Till. Recounting this story, which is, of course, quite disturbing, was it especially emotional experience to work on this show?
Oh, yes. I think in a quite a number of ways. Number one is for me personally, as I'm an interracial person, when I was younger, I actually saw KKK burn a cross on our lawn. And so this was like around 1960. So for me, it was a real personal, part of the story. And just to see how people have so much hatred. It's just really it's just hard to digest all the time. It doesn't matter that it was, in 1955, but even if it happens today, so it's a real emotional story.
And telling this story about the civil rights movement from the point of view of a Black woman, and the series is directed entirely by Black women. How did it feel to be able to tell this story with this team, which is unfortunately too unique a team? Like it's unfortunately that doesn't happen more often in TV.
Yeah, you know what? It was just really powerful to me because we don't get that opportunity all the time. And especially for us to kind of tell our own story. It just makes it feel more intimate for us. Well, for me, especially, I think that being a person of color, we bring a little bit more of our own sensitivities, I think I want to say, to the project as well. So it was very powerful to be able to work with so many great women.
And the series takes place in two major locations, Mississippi and Chicago, and a lot of times of rural Mississippi. How did you create that sense of rural Mississippi in that period through the sound?
I think, because I've traveled to the South, I think that you kind of just, that there's a lot of cicadas, that there's a lot of different kind of winds and stuff, right? Because there's not a lot of, machinery or modern things that you have now. So you have to just be really true to that environment in the 1950s. And so I did a lot of, searching with other films and things like that from the South to just kind of get more of a soundscape of that time. And also making sure that we use the cars from that era, trucks from that era, that kind of thing. So, we all kind of investigated a little bit.
And how was the approach different, if it was at all, with the Chicago scenes, being that, these are very different locations at the time, especially during the Jim Crow era?
Yeah, it's more, Chicago's is more city atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? A little bit more bustling, a little bit more polished, if you can say that. And so you kind of think that Chicago's a little bit more modern rather than more rural Mississippi. So that's another, ways that we approach that, and a little bit more of like in the neighborhood, there'd be more people playing, right? Because now you have a more neighborhood type thing instead of being out in the fields and being a little bit of, houses being further down the road from each other. So that's kind of how we approach that.
The night of Emmett's kidnapping itself feels very isolated and unsettling in its effect. What work went into creating the sound for that scene?
Oh, man. So you want to try to create some tension with as little as possible, right? So there was a lot of wind that was used. There was we wanted to also kind of focus on breathing, because breathing also can bring tension, right? Footsteps, walking from room to room, where they're searching for Emmett, like, where is he? And so I think that the breathing, the footsteps, a little bit of the wind, some creaking of the doors and of the wood on the floors kind of helps to bring that tension. That's the tension's already there, but you just try to really accentuate it a bit more. So that was our approach to that.
And creating this period sense of this both in Mississippi and Chicago, does that require a lot of work to sort of isolate out sounds that are too modern or too contemporary that maybe it's hard to avoid if, in a city? Or
I don't think for the shots that were in Chicago, I think it was more of like neighborhood sounds. Cars were different than they would be in Mississippi. And I think that, the train station, where you have the bustling of the people and you have the conductors and, those kind of things. And so that kind of helped to make the difference between the two. With Mississippi, it's more of like farmland, right? So you have the animals, an occasional truck by, that kind of thing. So that's how we differentiate those different areas.
And there are a lot of crowd scenes in the series, like courtroom, church scenes, press conferences. What are the sound challenges for scenes like that?
Well, that's where you have the group come in, right? And so they're going to listen to the scene as it progresses, and they're going to react to it. Like in the courtroom scenes, whether it's coughing or whatever, or when she goes to tell the story about how Emmett touched her and said things to her. And, so you have to get the response, the reaction from the people in the courtroom to try to, either validate her story or kind of, raise a question, right? And then when you had the outside of the courtroom scenes, they're murmuring about what was just said in the courtroom. They're having different conversations about it. Some are for, some are against, so you have the group that really and then you have to edit it in such a way where you're bringing the audience into that scene, right? So that's really what the group is meant to do. It's to bring you into that scene to where you feel that you are actually there.
In your career, which you've done so much, great work in your career, but you've also been a vice chair of the Academy Museum Advisory Committee. You were president of the Motion Picture Sound Editors. What has driven you to be, so active in your community of sound editors?
I love what I do. I love that, I just want to, because people don't know what we do. We don't, they don't know what a sound editor does, a Foley artist, a Foley editor, music editor. They don't even know that exists, right? So I'm so proud of all the work that we do and the time that's spent and the craft that is, there's just some awesome people. I don't know, like sound effects editors, I don't even get how their brain works on one side to create an effect, and so I know that there are, the young people coming up, they're so talented, right? But they don't even know that these jobs exist. So one of the reasons why I'm so involved in a lot of different committees and stuff is because I want to we want to get on panels. We want to go to schools. We want to show them exactly what we do, because a lot of their giftings could be like the next music editor, could be the next composer, could be the next Foley artist, right? But if they don't know that, if it's not brought to them, they have no clue, what's really out there. Everything is just not in front of the camera. There's a lot of talented people behind the camera. So that kind of is one thing that just drives me, right? Because I just want to help and just want to show them that people see them and that there's a lot that they could do with their life.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on Women of the Movement and all of your work within the industry in general. And so thank you so much for talking with me.
Oh, thank you so much.